Welcome to Public Service Consulting Practicum, PADM 680. I am your professor, Dr. Eddie Witzel. It is very important to have your textbook on the first day of class. We will be reading the first 4 chapters during the first week. Half of your class centers on the textbook, and the other half of the class is your volunteering for about 25 or 30 hours of consulting with a government agency or nonprofit organization. This would be an average of 2, 3, or 4 hours each week. Please begin to think about where you want to do this consulting. If you already work for a nonprofit organization, that would probably be your first choice. This should be something in addition to your regular duties, such as a collateral assignment. If you cannot conduct the consulting at work, then look at organizations that are already familiar, such as a church or school. You could also talk with friends who are involved with a nonprofit organization for ideas. If none of these options work, there may be a few opportunities at Washington Adventist University. Please don't be afraid of this class, but be prepared for hard work. Please read the first 4 chapters of the textbook this week. Chapter 1 talks about the human touch. The author says that the book's key value is that it gives a simple, pragmatic change model for use in turbulent context. Have you seen turbulent context at work, church, school, or home? I have seen turbulent context in all of these communities. Work is hard, that's why they call it work. As a manager, I tell my employees to follow the 50-50 rule. 50% of their work should be fun, 50% be not fun. Hopefully there are parts of your job that you enjoy. When you are doing these things, time seems to fly. That is my definition of fun. The other part of your job is the necessary grind, the things you dread and cause the day to drag on forever. So these are the things that are not fun. And my goal for each employee is a balance of 50-50. So continuing on in Chapter 1, there are 5 key human conditions and drivers that permeate all change programs to varying levels. These are self-interest, the drive to look after oneself; short-termism, the drive for payback today rather than tomorrow; sentiment, the tendency to be driven by emotions; stuck, the tendency to seek a comfortable place and stay there; sociability, the need for human stimulus and contact. We take each of the 5 human factors and understanding the level at which each is present in the client group and present in a positive or negative way. Then ask if the presence of the human factor will aid the change process or act against it. Chapter 1 is all about the human touch and understanding the human factor and the 5 conditions. Chapter 2 starts with a question. Why is it that relatively simple idea of having a problem, getting someone to help us find a solution, and then implementing the solution goes chaotically wrong every day? The crux of the 7 C's from the outset has been rooted in the notion that change, which is not sustainable, is of limited value and in many cases causes more problems than if we had left the system alone in the first place. Have you ever seen an initiative that was trying to make things better, but ended up breaking everything in both the short term and the long term? There are principles I learned long ago. Improvement requires change. Change always costs. But change does not guarantee improvement. Let me repeat that. Improvement requires change. Change always costs. and change does not guarantee improvement. The author discusses value through sustainable change. Change, value, and sustainability. There are forces in the organization helping the change go up and forces pushing it down. Will the change take off or crash and burn? So chapter 2 is about sticky change or sustainable change. Chapter 3 introduces the 7 C's. First is client. Define the client's orientation of the world, their perception of the situation, what goals they have regarding the final outcome, and who has the power to influence the outcome. Once this change is concluded, you will have a clear agreement as to what value you will deliver to the client and what value they will offer in return. The essence of this stage is to understand the person and the problem. Number 2 is clarify. Determine the nature and detail of the problem to be addressed. Map the construction of the system under consideration. Identify what and who is to be included and excluded from the change, and determine what areas pose a risk for the assignment. The primary question to understand is, what is going on? Number 3, create. Use creative techniques to develop a sustainable solution. Critically develop a solution that is measured against clear success criteria. Take as divergent a view as possible to find potential options, and then choose the option that meets the defined criteria. Number 4 is change. Understand the fundamental aspects that drive the underpin the change process, and in particular the human factors that need to be managed. Number 5, confirm. Ensure that change has taken place using quantitative and qualitative measures. Number 6, continue. Ensure that the change will be sustained using learning that emerges from the transition and skills of the new change agents and the sharing of new knowledge and skills. And number 7 is close. And the engagement process with the client, emphasizing the need to understand the final outcomes, the added value, new learning, and what further action you might undertake. There are 2 sets of questions. Spiral 1, questions, and Spiral 2, questions. You will need to meet with your client and ask these questions. The answers to these questions will form the basis of your consulting proposal. I have put these questions into a Word document for you. I would like to suggest you print these and take them with you to your first client meeting. Chapter 3 summarizes the 7 C's. So chapter 4 expands on the first C, which is client. You must understand the person. There are issues with the client you must understand. Challenge the client. The real risk in any change process is to assume the client knows best. One of the primary goals is to challenge the client perception of the issue and get the real problem that needs to be addressed. Think about a 3-legged stool. Who is the client? Who are the end customers of any change I might make? And what is my primary role within the relationship? Head-heart negotiation. To what extent does the client tend to make emotional decisions or look more logical in outlook? Trust index. To what extent does the client trust me, and how can I make it more likely that they will do so before the first contact? Push-pull relationship. Will I use a social style to build a relationship with the client or focus on the product pitch? 3D connection. The importance of the gut feel cannot be underestimated in the client stage. The 3D connection model explains why emotional choices can be as critical as opposed to logical approaches. Next, you must understand the problem. There are tools that will help you understand the problem. MPH client mapping. From the very beginning, seek to view the problem as the client sees it, not how you see it. Outcome testing. Through the use of questions, draw out the client's real wished-for outcome. The change ladder. Remove fog from the initial situation problem by focusing on the dominant area where the intervention might need to take place. Compound contracting. Agree a synergistic contract that will set out a framework for action, define the roles and responsibilities each party, and offer a tool by which the success or failure of the change process can be measured. The textbook goes into all of these in detail in Chapter 4. Skim through this before your client meeting, and then after the client meeting, focus on the areas that apply in your case. So that's a summary of the first 4 chapters.